Welcome to New York 4 to 7, presented by Verizon. I'm your host, Chelsea Sherrod, and today we are going to preview the second Subway Series matchup of the season between the Mets and the Yankees. First, to represent the Mets side of this rivalry, former Met and SNY pre- and post-game analyst Todd Zeile, and to represent the Yankees side, WFAN's Emmanuel Berbari. Welcome, guys. Let's see how many topics we will cover today. 5 topics for the 5 train. Guys, our first topic, the state of the teams and the state of the division. Emmanuel, I'll start with you. Where does the Yankees stand heading into this Subway Series compared to the last time that these two teams faced each other?
Yeah, last time these two teams faced each other, Yankees were riding high early in the year. They had one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in baseball, and they built a division lead. And the Subway Series, the first Subway Series as part of it, built a 7-8 game division lead into the latter part of May. That's evaporated now. The Yankees have gone through a tough month where they haven't hit with runners in scoring position, haven't hit with runners on base. They pitched really well. They still have, and a rougher patch lately with the bullpen, where I think some overuse has had to do with that. They've gone to the same guys each and every day. They've had different problems, so they've overused the bullpen. But a lot has changed since the first time the Yankees and the Mets faced each other. Now the Yankees find themselves in a 3-horse race in the AL East, where the first time they were riding high and building a comfortable lead. At one point in late May, they had the largest division lead in baseball. Now they're fighting tooth and nail to just stay in front, and a lot has gone into that. A lot has gone wrong over the last month, but there's still a lot of real estate. So you think this weekend could be a jolt, maybe a shot in the arm for either team.
Yeah, it was a really rough June for both teams. Todd, where do the Mets stand heading into this Subway Series?
I was just going to say, yeah, exactly what Emmanuel said, right? The last time these guys met up, Mets, as you said, were riding high, had a very good month of May. They had built a lead. They were the best team in baseball record-wise soon after that. And then month of June, especially after the first 8 or 9, 10 days of June, has been really trying for this team. And its injuries have resulted in the starting rotation being, quite decimated, with Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, and Kodai Senga, who was really establishing himself as a bona fide ace again for this team, all going down. That put more pressure on the bullpen and the depth of this rotation. And so the thing that had kind of stabilized the Mets in the early going, which was that starting and bullpen pitching was number one in baseball. And that's waned considerably because of that stress of those injuries. And then at the same time, they had never really been hitting with men in scoring position, but Pete was, driving in runs at a great pace, at a league-leading pace. And you were getting enough out of Lindor, and Soto was starting to come around. So you still had enough offense to be able to, manage wins with the excelling pitching staff. And now it seems like all of the facets have kind of gone a little bit down together.
Yeah, the Mets took a lot of hits in June. Carlos Mendoza is saying that they were just kind of battling from like every aspect of this team. So hopefully this weekend for each team is kind of like a turning point in some way. But speaking of All-Star, Todd, let's head to our second topic. Hey, now you're an All-Star. Francisco Lindor is now officially an All-Star with the Mets. What can we expect from him in Queens?
Well, look, he's really learned to kind of be the leader and the sort of captain emeritus of this team. And that's been a process that I think doesn't come necessarily easy for superstar players that come over and sign big deals. And you're finding that there was a little bit of a period for Juan Soto as well. So what can you expect out of Lindor? Gratitude. I think he's very thankful to finally being named as an All-Star. And as we know, his numbers over the last couple of years have proven to be as good as any shortstop in the game, and almost MVP worthy. It's just that the slow starts have kept him out of the All-Star game, and it's something that I was glad to see him get off to the good start, and the fans came out in Queens to support him, and the vote tells the story. So I think it's very well deserved, and I think a little overdue for Lindor, but I think a ton of gratitude is what you're seeing out of him.
Yeah, really happy for him that this has finally come to fruition. To the Yankee side, Aaron Judge, an all-star starter. Emmanuel, what can we expect from him this weekend in Queens?
Yeah, I think you're starting to see even more this year. Judge in these big spots. The moment is finding him, and he's coming through in these big spots. We saw an example of it in Boston against Garrett Crochet. Yankees lost that game, but ninth inning, Yankees were about to get shut out, and mano a mano, Judge had struck out every at bat this year against Garrett Crochet and took him out to left field 440 feet. We saw an example this past week in Toronto. Yankees, another game that they lost. It speaks of their tough month of June, but they're surmounting this deficit. Aaron Judge caps it with this majestic home run to left field. So maybe a precursor of Judge getting over the hump in these big situations, in these big spots. I think everybody has an eye on October and what Aaron Judge can do in October this year for this Yankee team. The regular season accolades, they speak for themselves at this point. It's just comical at this stage what Aaron Judge puts up year after year. It's only him and Mark McGwire. 4 times in a career hitting 30 home runs before the All-Star break. Judge just did it for a 4th time. So obviously well-deserved All-Star. He embodies everything you want as a leader, as a captain for this Yankee team. As he goes, this Yankee team goes. And that goes beyond the numbers. He has a careful watch, careful eye over everything that's going on with this Yankee team and how high and low they get, especially in situations where it may not be going as well. He wants this team to keep an even keel and have the bigger picture in mind. So we're watching a true all-time great continue to get better and better. And I think that's a privilege for every Yankee fan to watch. But he is really, I think more so than a few years ago, he is the guy. He was always the guy, but he's the guy now. As he goes, the Yankees truly go.
Todd, Juan Soto was in the second round of voting, didn't get named a starter, but he was the NL Player of the Month in June. How can he impact this next Subway Series, especially given that the fact that the first Subway Series, all eyes were on Soto and his return to playing against the Yankees? How do you think that he'll approach this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little different because it's going to be played at home, and I think for him, he wanted to go back to Yankee Stadium, but I think he had a little added pressure on him going back to Yankee Stadium. I don't even think at that point, and I can't speak for Juan Soto on this, I don't think at that point he was absolutely certain that he had made the right decision to come to Queens. So I think he was still vacillating on that tough offseason choice. He loved his time with the Yankees. He's been pretty clear about that. And so now it seems like since the start of June, and we point to the Dodgers series early June, where he finally got a little bit of his, sort of personality started to show through. And since that time, as you said, named Player of the Month in June, I think he feels good at the plate right now. I think he feels confident. I think he's having more fun. I think he feels more a part of a group when he felt a little isolated earlier on this season. So I think all of those factors could be a perfect storm for the Mets and for Soto going into this series, because he felt disappointed about his performance in that first go around, and he wanted to do some big things and wasn't able to do big things in Yankee Stadium. And so I think coming back out and having a chance to sort of redeem himself in a way is probably something that motivates him. But I don't expect him to try to do something super big. I expect him to stay in that sort of Juan Soto mode that he's been in over the last 3 weeks. That's been pretty fun to see.
Yeah, it definitely has. He's been settling in really nicely. We'll see what redemption looks like for him. To our third topic, on and off the injured list, DH edition. The Yankees recently have gotten Giancarlo Stanton back. Emmanuel, how has he been since his return?
I think a little bit better. We think back to Giancarlo Stanton coming off the injured list in recent years with the Yankees, and it takes him a minute. It takes him a while to refine that timing. I think he's looked a lot better this time. It just hasn't come with as much of the power. This week we saw first home run of the year for Giancarlo Stanton, so the power started to come around. But in terms of the balance and just hitting, I think he's looked better than recent years coming off the IL, more balanced. And I think that came with all the live reps he got. The Yankees didn't rush this. They really took their time and made sure they got it right with Stanton. This is a pain tolerance management situation with Stanton. It's never going to be a situation where he feels 100% with the tennis elbows. So they're looking to play this very carefully. And he got a lot of live at-bats, whether it be in game situations or not, real game type situations or not. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a guy who's very comfortable and looks like a guy who didn't not have a spring training. before he came back and returned to the fold. And this is important. The Yankees have been dealing with this rotating door of guys lately. So Stanton, more or less, you look to him and think, here's one of the big names in the middle of our lineup. Is he going to get into one of those modes where he could hit alongside Aaron Judge and be that guy that people circle and fear? He's still Giancarlo Stanton, so there's always going to be a presence when he's out there, and you're going to have to think about him as an opposing pitcher. But I think there's been more of a focus. He had a grace period for that first week or so. He's back in the lineup. All right, he's back in. He looks pretty good, but now I think all Yankee fans are waiting for that couple week stretch where the Stanton they know and love is going to hit 5 or 6 home runs over a 2-week stretch, and that could be coming in short order.
Yeah, definitely important to have him back in the lineup. To the Mets, Todd, they're hoping to get Jesse Winker back soon. What will he bring to the DH spot upon his return?
I think Jesse brings a lot more than just a left-handed bat to the DH spot. And I think it hasn't been talked about a lot for the Mets, but I think he's a guy that's been missed. He's been there and he's been in the dugout, but you saw at the end of last season that just the infusion of his energy and his enthusiasm. He absolutely wanted to be a Met coming back. He was about to do anything he could to convince this team that he was the right fit for them. And I think he is the right fit for them. And it's good to see that as he's progressed in his rehab, he's swinging the bat well. But I think the bat is a presence in the lineup. It's a power bat from the left-hand side that they haven't been able to get consistently from that DH role. But it's also that sort of infectious energy that he brings to this team, and a want and willingness to do anything to win. I think he's at a point in his life and his career where he recognizes that he doesn't have a lot of time left. And with the time that he does have left, he wants to wear a crown and he will run through walls. And he's just one of those guys that I think the energy level goes up and the guys rally around him. And so I look very forward to having him back in this lineup for a number of different reasons, as I'm sure Carlos Mendoza and this Mets organization does as well.
Yeah, maybe that's something that this Mets team has been missing over the past month or so. To our fourth topic, role players. Todd, the Mets, who are you looking for to make an impact this weekend in the Subway Series?
Well, you know what? I think you've got the top 4 in this lineup. I like this week when Carlos, kind of in a move to try to shake things up a little bit, change the top of the lineup and move Nemo back into the leadoff spot and Lindor batting second. And that proved to have, pay dividends right away. But I think where this Mets team, from a lineup perspective, needs to shore up a little bit is that bottom 4 in the lineup has been inconsistent this year. And you see some signs from Brett Beatty. You see some signs from Mark Vientos. You see some signs from Mauricio. But none of those guys has really gone out and grabbed that spot in the lineup, and they shouldn't be a role player. I think that's the thing, that we're talking about role players, but one of those guys is really set to take control of that third base position. And if it's not, one guy taking that one position, I think you can get some value out of Vientos getting back into a position where he feels confident and comfortable. He was such a big part of the middle of the offense last year and a dynamic threat in the middle of that lineup that they haven't really had this season consistently. And then I don't mind Beatty playing second base and McNeil playing some outfield to keep the bats in the lineup and to lengthen that the lineup a little bit, because they have had struggles, especially in June, where the top 4, top 5 guys might be getting on base and producing, but it gives the pitchers a way to work around this lineup in the bottom part of the lineup when it was struggling. So it needs a couple of those guys to have a big series, to step up and to get, really feel like they're taking that job. I think that's what we haven't seen yet, is one of them just reach out and say, this job is mine. I want it. I'm going to take it.
Yeah, we'll see how definitive their play is in this series. To the Yankees, Emmanuel, who's been struggling to you that you think needs to have a big weekend?
Anthony Volpe. He's been the talk of the town, and you're starting to see the last few days where he's gone from at-bats where you feel he's a little lost up there, and maybe things are starting to spiral on him, to hitting the ball hard and hitting the ball to the opposite field, which is when Anthony Volpe is going right with his swing. He's not flying open. He's hitting the ball hard. Just hasn't been finding a lot of luck with those hard hit balls. So I think Anthony Volpe's on the cusp of one of those 2 week stretches where everyone relaxes a bit, because right now you would think the sky is falling with Anthony Volpe as we speak right now, even though for the most part he's still giving you above average defense. He's having a better year statistically than his first couple of seasons, but he's been mired in an awful slump. And I think a couple weeks of writing that, and then you look up and you'll look up at his page and you'll think, whoa, Anthony Volpe's having a step forward type of year 3. He's a guy who the Yankees could have a great weekend against the Mets for a variety of reasons. And they have a variety of role players, as Todd was alluding to, who could bust out. But Volpe's a key fixture. He's in that lineup every day. He's your starting shortstop on a bigger stage like this, mired in the slump that he is. I look towards Volpe. It's a matter of time. If anything, he's due to bust out of this. He can't be this bad for this long. So I look towards Anthony Volpe to have a big weekend.
Yeah, let's see if he'll do it. To our fifth and final topic, the trade deadline. Todd, I'll come to you first. With the trade deadline approaching on July 31st, give us one move that you want to see the Mets make.
You know what? I'm really not good at this speculation game when it comes to playing GM, because everybody wants to go out and get, that big move and get a big arm. But what I do think, and I'm also sort of channeling a little bit of Steve Cohen and David Stearns, and they're very calculated. Certainly, there's all the resources in the world, and I would not at all expect them to sit on their hands for the trade deadline. But at the same time, they have made a commitment to this organization to build for sustainability. And with the injuries that they've had to sustain this season, I don't see them going and depleting their farm system to make one move for a win this year scenario. I think they still have that calculated approach. So that being said, I think that the priority here is probably going to be an arm, and maybe a frontline starting pitcher, if that's available out there without completely depleting your system. I think Sandy Alcantara is a really interesting potential trade deadline guy for me, because he's having a down year in Miami. They've been very clear that he's on the block. And I think the way the Mets have taken guys that have started to not find their way as much as a pitcher, and then bring them over to Jeremy Hefner in the pitching lab and get them back right and doing what they do well, there's no reason for me to think that a guy like Alcantara can't return to somewhat close to his form. And to me, he's one of the most dynamic pitchers in Major League Baseball when he's right. So that would be one that I think would be interesting if it wasn't, as we get closer to that trade deadline. You don't think everybody else in the world knows that the Mets might want an arm like that. So what are they going to do? They're going to make the price as high as they possibly can. So it may not be a fit, but that's where I'd look to solidify this team, is with a big starting arm.
Yeah, definitely a viable option. Emmanuel, what's one move that you want to see the Yankees make?
I think it was about even for the last few weeks between bullpen and adding a bat to the infield. Now I would actually give bullpen an edge, because with the Fernando Cruz injury, and he's been so dynamite out there, and it's a high-grade oblique strain. It's not a situation where you're looking at a couple of weeks. You're going to be without Fernando Cruz for a long period of time. And with the amount of force and exertion he puts into what's one of the better pitches in baseball, is splitter that disappears from hitters. But I'm not sure. That worries me going down the stretch, getting him back to 100% of what he needs to be. And he's such a key to that bullpen. Right now, everybody needs to slide up a roll. And the Mark Leiters and Tim Hills of the world, who seemingly pitch every day, now they got to be asked to do even more than they're already doing. So adding depth to that bullpen, I could see the Yankees adding an arm or two, but particularly an arm. If you see any names surface as to strikeout guys who may not have the lowest ERAs, but they miss bats, I would look at those guys, because the Yankees have guys in Weaver and Williams and Leiter and Hill. They're good pitchers. They're good relievers. They're not necessarily your top tier strikeout guys. The Yankees want a guy who can go out there, first and third, one out, middle of the game, fifth, sixth inning, and put out the fire, be that fire extinguisher type of reliever. I would value that way higher than an infield bat because we still got to wait and see with what this infield turns into. Jazz has had his struggles defensively at third as of late, but the Yankees still look at him and see him as an average to above average defensive third baseman and clearly a plus bat. Second base, DJ LeMahieu. Is he healthy by the trade deadline? There's no indication that he wouldn't be. And also, he's been more than a steady bat at the bottom of the lineup since he started to settle into the season. Since June 1st, he's hitting around 300. So the Yankees aren't going to part with the veteran in DJ LeMahieu at second base if he continues to hit at this clip. Could you add to the bench? Sure. You need another righty bat on the bench. I could see a minor move happening there. But I wouldn't. We got to wait and see. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion the Yankees are going to shake up this infield. But the bullpen, I think that's a foregone conclusion, especially with the Fernando Cruz injury. They're going to add depth to this bullpen because otherwise you're not only going to rely on the same guys, you're going to burn some of these guys out that are already logged in. They're on pace for 80, 85 appearances, guys like Leiter and Hill.
Yeah, pitching is at a premium. Lots to consider over the next few weeks. Thank you all so much for watching New York 4 to 7 presented by Verizon. For Todd, Zeile, and Emmanuel Berbari, I'm Chelsea Sherrod. Enjoy the Subway Series, and we'll see you soon.